My name's Tarek. I work for Master Builders. I'm based in Sacramento. It's 92 miles or 3 hours and 20 minutes on a Saturday afternoon. Driving, not walking or riding a bicycle. While Jim is figuring this out, I first met Bruce and Ward, and Ken is right, they're inseparable, or they used to be. Ward, Bruce, Ward. They offered me a job in 1995. I didn't take the job, and I often wonder how my life might have turned out for the better had I had the sense to hitch my little tiny horse to their wagon some many years ago. I didn't, so that's life. I didn't know Ken. I'm not in the know. I didn't know that blue jeans and tuxedos were a thing. They are a thing. I did not know that. I did know that Tommy Bahama shirts are a thing. I have many Tommy Bahama shirts. I've never worn one at an ACI. I thought between Ken's remarks and right now briefly about buying one, all my Tommy shirts my wife finds at thrift shops. If I turned up with a Tommy Bahama shirt bought in Union Square, I couldn't move back. I couldn't go back home. So I did the best I could to honor Bruce, and that is a genuine suit coat, a concrete T-shirt, and slightly worn jeans. So thank you for that. It allowed me to get comfortable. We're still hunting and pecking.
We finally got control.
I'm running out of filler material here. We've done all the tricks I know how to do. All right, there we go. So,
Tarek, thank you for...
You're welcome. Thank you. Where's Oscar? Oscar's not here. I'd like. He's coming. I know he is because he told me he'd kick me off if I didn't talk fast. And this guy put the Lyndon Johnson squeeze on me. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's painful unless you vote yes. Oscar, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be on such a panel. My goodness, the brain power and the experience and the personalities that have spoken today are just beyond the pale. So to be included in that is quite the honor, quite the distinction. Oscar asked me to talk about what it takes to make good high-performance concrete. I'm not really sure why he thought I would know anything about that. And so I scratched my head almost to digging a hole in my scalp. Is it about the ingredients? You know, I work for a material supplier. Is it about, raw materials? Is it about the equipment? I chaired 304 for way longer than anybody. That's in essence, the Ready Mix Production Committee, and I worked the first 15 years for the Ready Mix Association. Is it about equipment and processes? Maybe it's about QA, QC and getting all of that straight. We all know and love 301, the spec document, right? Good projects, good high performance starts with a good spec, right? We know about ACI 211. I've designed hundreds, maybe thousands of mixes. In the old days with an abacus and Sanskrit, papyrus, now with an Excel spreadsheet, that if it says 27.00, somebody's happy. Doesn't mean you can actually produce that concrete. So I thought maybe it's about that. And of course, if you knew my work father, Mr. Richard D. Gaynor, you would know that it's all about ASTM C94, right? That's where everything comes from. And I submit to you that what it takes to make good high-performance concrete is not found in any ACI or ASTM document. It's nothing we learned in civil engineering or construction management or a business school, at least not lately. It's not about ingredients or processes. It's really about people. It's always about people. People of character. And I'm going to speak about a couple of characteristics that I think are absolutely essential. And everybody's touched on them in one way or another. I think honesty is an essential. So when in doubt, go to the dictionary, right? Honesty is a noun. There's plenty of seats up front, Miser. I won't throw anything at you, I promise. Here's the first definition. If you go to merriam-webster.com, not Wiki, I don't trust Wiki, and look up honesty. It's a noun. It means adherence to the facts. Well, we're all science and fact-based people, right? So that's the easy definition. Here's the tougher definition: fairness and straightforwardness of conduct. That's the one I'm going to zero in on. I'm going to change politics to concrete because we shouldn't ever speak politics. George Washington said that in his Rules of Civility, right? So if you click the thesaurus button, then you get all these synonyms. And I'm going to zero in on forthrightness, candidness, and frankness, because they're essential ingredients of what? What do we need to be forthright, candid, and frank about with one another? Well, let's start with strength. And I don't mean F prime C or F prime sub C R, which Emin and Ken discussed in significant detail. I'm going to coin a new term, and I hope to live to see it embodied in the code, and it's called F prime real. And so what do I mean by that? Well, here's an example. Let's say that the structural engineer has noodled up something, some element in a building, and we can't tell you the location or the intended purpose of this building. For all intents and purposes, it doesn't really exist, right, Chad? But let's say it's 6,000 at PSI at 28 days, and we have zero history, none whatsoever. We don't have a tight collection of 5 arrows in a circle. We have nothing to go off of. We have no standard deviation, no history, no lab trials. So y'all are smart people. What's the required over-design strength? What does 301 say? It's 1,200 if it's 5,000, less than 5,000. But if it's over 5,000, then we have an equation. There's a little hint. So anybody quick? 7,300, okay? But now the general contractor tells the concrete sub that the schedule calls for post-tensioning at 48 or 72 hours. So is it 7,300? But the structural engineer, let's say it's a post-tension slab, the structural engineer says, I need 75% of F prime C. Well, the Post-Tensioning Institute says 3,000 PSI. There's a big difference between 75% of 6,000, not the 7,300. And the tendon manufacturer might say more or less, right? So what is the real required strength? Change it from a post-tension slab, change it to an elevator core that has a climbing form system, and the formwork sub wants to jack in somewhere between 12 and 24 hours. Not unheard of. Is it still 6,000? What's the real, can we be honest about that with one another so it gets bid in the same fashion? Let's continue it and make it more complex. We established at 7,300. What if the owner wants low embodied carbon concrete and imposes in the specification a maximum global warming potential on every single yard, and they establish a carbon budget for this project? Well, let's say the carbon budget is pushing on the PT decks or pushing on that core wall with the 3,000 in 12 hours or 3,000 in 24 hours. And let's say the only cement we have available is Portland limestone cement, and boy, am I glad I'm not a cement producer this week here at ACI.
Move along, Tarek.
Move along. So now is the schedule driving the project, or is something else driving the project? Or more likely, if you've been around the block a time or two, you're going to look at this and say, there's no way that schedule's going to be held to. So what's the real strength? That's what I'd like to know. I'd like somebody to tell me honestly, what am I designing for? Let's add some reality. When do we need that strength? Well, Emin talked about low strength. And Ken backed it up. And we understand the over-design requirements. We understand where we need to be and why we need to be there. And it's conservative, but not overly so. We can have a low break about 1 in 11 times as long as we're not more than 500 PSI off the dime, right? Raise your hand if you've ever been in a situation where you had low breaks and the low breaks were confirmed by actual in situ tests, the results of which you believed in. Anybody been in a situation like that? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Should be everybody, right? More or less. If you haven't had low brakes, you just haven't been doing it long enough. All right, now sit on your hands because I don't want to know and you don't want any of the other people around you to know. Don't raise your hand. Did you go back to the engineer of record and say, you asked me for 6. It's demonstrably 4750 as near as we can figure out. That's more than 75%. It's right around the 85%. What can you really live with? So what was the real over-design then? And if they could have lived with that, why didn't we just start with that? We want to lower global warming potential. Why don't we start with a realistic number on the front end instead of this little dance we do, okay? Can we be honest about water? Everyone knows that a given batch of materials has a fixed quantity of water that it takes to make a 3 to 4 inch water slump. That's the innate water demand. A given quantity of cement or cement plus other cementitious materials, largely driven by the aggregate characteristics. And that's always a number that's somewhere between 30 if you get perfect gallons, perfect aggregates, to 36 or 37 if everything's ugly, right? For my structural engineering friends, do we really need the water cement or water cementitious material limits that are imposed on this project? Do we really need them? Because if we need them and we haven't allowed enough of the basic water content, then what are we really doing? We're driving up cement, we're driving up paste, we're driving up cost, we're driving up shrinkage potential, making life harder in hot weather or mass concrete situations. For my concrete producer friends, how often is your moisture meter calibrated? Or for that matter, when's the last time it was calibrated? And please don't say when it was installed. I may not have any friends when I finish this portion. I'd like to know if all the water in the batching, mixing, delivery, and placement process, that sounds like ACI 304, right? Has it all been accounted for accurately, plus or minus a pound, more or less, even plus or minus a gallon we can live with? Can we be honest about that? For my concrete pumping contractor friends, I know you need water to clean out your pump. I know you need water at the end of the day. You need city water and pressure to clean out the hopper and clean the line and spit it all clean. I've carried pump line that's got set up concrete in it. Not fun. Do you really need access to city water during pumping while the pump is running? I kind of wonder about that. And for my finishing contractor friends, if anybody would still talk to me today, what's really in that Hudson sprayer? just saying. Can we be honest about that? Can we be honest about schedule? Can we really be honest about schedule? When will this project really start? Are we spitballing? What's the expected completion date? Anybody been to Barcelona? La Sagrada Familia, who knows when it was started? 1925. Do you know the target completion date? 2025. Okay. Anybody ever built a Costco? How many days, Tim, from the time you break ground till the time that store opens? It's 220 and there's no force majeure. That schedule is pretty well laid out. Everything we do is somewhere in between those two. But can we be honest about it? Can we be honest about what day and time we need concrete? We're doing this dance in the industry all over America. I just listened to a superintendent from DPR and the Constructability Committee talk about a shortage of materials in Phoenix. And they had to negotiate week by week for quantities of concrete. Well, if the favorite contractor customer says, I need 300 yards on Monday morning, starting at first light of day, and I need them at 75 yards an hour, and they had no intention of placing concrete, but that's what they tell the concrete producer on Friday afternoon. They spend Friday late afternoon and early evening, calling all their smaller customers, rearranging things around. Monday morning comes, the steel's not done. The big producer says, no thank you. The little guys are all now running late. Why? Then what does the concrete producer tell you? Oh, you want a big placement? You need to book me 3 weeks out. Could we just be honest? Can we be honest about how many yards of concrete per hour you need, or you can make, or you can pump? Just a little bit of honesty. And by the way, how many yards can you really put on a deck, get manpower on, get finished? And you got to cure it? Wait, we got curing? I didn't know. I was told there'd be no curing. Can we be honest about curing? How many of us have looked at cracks and gone straight to something from Bruce and said, this is textbook lack of curing. Why didn't we cure? It wasn't in the budget. Of course it was in the budget. All right, appearance. Mike talked about tolerances. Chris showed us some very lovely exposed concrete. So did Mike Schneider. And Tip just has one name. He's like a Brazilian soccer player or a musician. Tip and Scott talked about flat and elevated, and Leo showed us how to measure that, which is just another way of describing appearance, right? Flat and elevated, except we're describing it for horizontal instead of vertical. Let's be honest about the expected appearance. What does the owner want? What is the owner willing to pay for? And is there anything at all in the specifications about appearance? And for that matter, do we know how many set of aesthetic categories ACI has? How can our designer friends even begin to address correctly how to specify when we've got multiple sets of expectations? It's a little tough for them. Let's this is a part where this is non-rhetorical, this is participatory. What is that? Oh, I know, this is electrical. I know we're concrete guys. I loved electrical engineering. I liked it so much I took it twice. What is that on the left? Gears, thank you. Another ingredient of good, high-performance concrete. What does it take? Well, people skills, especially communication. Definition, it's a noun. It's a process. Insects do it. People do it. People exchange information, not pheromones. Well, people exchange pheromones too, but that's for something different, all right? What do we need to communicate about? I know I switched from a noun to a verb. It's the same concept, right? Colin talked about contractors and producers getting along, and Carrie talked about contractors and engineers getting along, and architects inserting themselves in between. I heard the word collaboration at least 6 times today. Can we collaborate? Chad just gave us an example of integrated project design. Tremendous amount of collaboration. Look at the savings. Some poor concrete producer thought he had a 25,000 yard job and you reduced it to 9,000 yards. Nice work, okay? Constructability. Well, it takes time to communicate. It takes time to develop mixed designs that address workability, constructability. A nominal 6-inch slump, I'll let y'all, Bruce will tell you what nominal 6-inch means. He taught me what that means, versus self-consolidating concrete, versus a clause that says workability be defined by the contractor, shouldn't be addressed in the specifications. Can we have that discussion early on? Can we define success? Can we go look at examples or pull them out of books or magazines or journals and say, this is what we want, this is what we expect? And who said concrete is a natural material first thing this morning, and we're going to have, Bruce, are they defects or imperfections? We'll never address that. We'll never settle that discussion, right? But we know we're going to have failures of expectation with respect to aesthetics, for example, or low breaks, Let's set up those repair procedures in advance, and let's define the resolution process in advance, because that way we all stay friends, right? We all get to do this again and again and again. Well, when do we need to communicate? Well, ideally, from pre-planning till the construction documents are out. We're all involved. And I would add to your list, Chad, I'd add the concrete producer. And if it's highly technical concrete, you better either have a Scott on your team or a Bruce on your team or somebody that's done that once. If your mix has never been done before, whatever it is, SEC, highly sustainable concrete, if it's not been done in full production in that market, it's at least 6 months. I was involved in 3 out of the 4 projects of the Bay Bridge. We started 2.5 years early because Caltrans demanded 2 years creep data. So get your checkbook out, be honest, set the expectation, what will we allow? Can we communicate pre-bid? Well, maybe, depends on the project, right? Maybe it's allowed, maybe it's prohibited. Design build is not allowed in every state in the nation, right? Post-award, again, depends on the project, but we should communicate post-award. Are we doing mock-ups? And we need to add a couple months, right? Got to at least do 2. Let's add some time for that and communicate well in advance. I submit we do a pre-placement conference. I aim for 4 weeks in advance of the first placement. That may not be enough time. It's sure a whole lot better than a Zoom call the night before, because it's too late to make any changes at that point, right? And what about honest, intelligent orders that that address the how much, how when, how much, how fast, what's our starting time, what's our ending time? And can we communicate post-construction? Can we recap what went well? Or God forbid we need to do a post-mortem, what didn't go well? I know Bruce had a hand in this, as did Colin. If you don't have this, you need to get it. It's free. Or shoot me a note. I'll share it. Because it's not free. Bev's shaking her head. Okay, I won't share it. This is from Harvard Professional Development. I'm not going through this. You can find this yourself. You Google improving your communication skills, Harvard Professional Development. It's about a 10-minute read, a 5-minute listen to, or send me a note and I'll send you the link, okay? This project was right here in San Francisco. You could walk to this. It's about 10 years ago it was completed. It's the the San Francisco Public Utility Commission headquarters. It's a net carbon zero operating building, and we took 50% of the carbon out of the footprint of this building. Replacements were between 50 and 70%. Now, when you replace 50 and 70% of the cement with stuff other than cement, and you've never done it before in a 17-story building, things don't necessarily go right, and then you call somebody that looks exactly like Bruce, because there's nobody better to call when things don't go right, and your back's against the wall, and there's multiple columns where the cylinders were neglected. You were right, Emin, they were neglected, and guess what? The strength development curve for that cylinder doesn't look anything like, and neither do cores look anything like that work that was done in the 50s and 60s. And so out of that came a PanCal Foundation study. I had the privilege to be a small piece of this. This was really the Bruce and the Ward show. We spent $100,000 of PanCal money supported by ASCC to say, what's it all about? This is in the public domain. Eyes wide open, that's what it amounts to. So, really, if we're thinking about character and leadership and honesty and communication skills, those are leadership qualities. Leadership at a project level, leadership at a firm level, leadership at the entire industry level. And that's this guy, right? Not just one project, not just one firm, but a couple generations of us. From Leo to me and a whole lot of people in between. And there he is, relaxed, and somebody beat me to this. So I left this in because I want to know, what the hell were you doing when they took that picture?
Spitting the bug out.
Spitting the bug out. All right. That's all I have for you. Thank you.